Hey everyone. Today I'm going to cover some security use cases where maybe you're locking down your environment, your Okta tenant, and your users from accessing their applications from outside the US, or maybe it's scoped down to a specific state, kind of wherever you're coming from. And now we can leverage some of Okta's technology to help automate this process rather than having to manually exclude individuals from security policies and forget them later on, uh, thus kind of exposing a greater threat landscape. And I'm going to create a guide to go through how to set up all of this as well. And I'll put that in the description of this video. But let's go ahead and kick it off and get started. So the first thing that we're going to cover is security policies, and then we're going to jump into identity governance and talk about the access requests that our end users can make to kind of be exempt and be able to work from out of country. So the first thing that we need to do is set up, it's called an out of country group. Very simple. You just add a group, name it that out of country group, give it a description if you want to. And right now we can see that there's no users inside of that. The second piece that we're going to look at is going to be down in security and under our authentication policies. Before I do that, I'll jump into networks really quickly and just show this is where we'd be able to set up either dynamic IP ranges, something like a headquarters or office locations, or specific countries. So maybe we defined a country that was just United States, or in my case, and the example I'm going to use is, hey, maybe these are my risky areas. I don't want my users accessing a particular subset of applications if they're coming from one of these risky areas that I defined. So in our authentication policies, now we'll be able to see okay, I have more sensitive applications down here, and I'll go ahead and click into this. And so when a user tries to access one of these four applications that I deem riskier, maybe it has client sensitive information, whatever that might be, that's where I might want to lock it down and say, hey, if they're coming from one of those risky areas, they're not getting access. So if we look at the rules in this policy that are going to apply to these four applications, the first one that I have set up is an approved out-of-country group security policy. Before I jump into that, let me just scroll down a little bit. And I have a second rule here that just says, hey, if they're in a risky area, we're going to deny access. It's a very simple, broad scoped rule. I just named it block risky network zone. And I put that risky areas that we defined in that network section in the following zone. So if they meet that condition, they're in one of those countries that we specified, we're denying access to those four applications only. But in a case where someone might need to go work from one of those locations, or maybe you have this scope so that they can't access anything unless they're in the United States or another country that you're currently operating in, then we can place this rule above. And these rules evaluate in priority, so in sequence. So if they trip this rule, they're going to be able to get in, regardless if they're coming from one of those risky areas. So I'll go ahead and edit this, and we'll just see I'm going to apply this to just the out of country group. And it's very simple. I haven't put anything else into the security policy other than I'll allow them in with password and IDP plus another factor, and I'm toggling on phishing resistant hardware protected authenticators as well. So they're going to need Okta Verify or FIDO2 in order to pass this check. So let's go ahead and cancel that. We'll jump right into it. So we're going to be covering access requests now and workflows. The setup is going to be mostly in the guide, but we'll do it from an end user point of view first. So what I've done is I've constructed a flow. So my end user can come here, click on the access request chiclet to be able to request access to that out of country. And I'll go ahead and click request access. And here's the form that I've given for my end user to fill out. So give me a justification, going to visit family for 2 weeks. And I can select a particular date. In this case, to show this off better, I'm going to select that I'm going out of country today. And I'm going to say that I'm returning today as well, so that we can see the full power of the workflows towards the end of this. Where are we traveling to? So I've designated a list of countries that my users might be traveling to. They could also select other. If they do, they can add that country there. And the flows will handle that as well. But for now, maybe I'll just select Canada, and I'll go ahead and submit this request. One thing to point out too is that we can initiate these requests and approvals through Slack or Teams. So what I'll point out here is once we have this configured to our Slack environment, we can actually go to the Okta app up here, and we can go to home and we can select different resources for our access requests. So maybe in here, I wanted to request access while out of country. And I already have one outstanding that I could basically come in here and provide that same justification and send that over to the administrator side. So very easy to configure through Slack. You can also just kind of go into anywhere, or let me go in to my administrator and maybe just type in /access. Now, Slack uses a little bit of machine learning and natural processing language to pick up what you're looking for. So maybe if I say out of country, if I can type, I can go ahead and click that, and then that might actually be able to pick up directly what I'm looking for. So it's great. Let's submit a request for requests out of country. I can click continue, or if I need something else, I can select one of the other flows that's designated to this user. So here again, there's the form that I could fill out, and that would go through as well. I'm not going to go through that process though. We'll just do this from the other side. So as an administrator, I can come and go to my identity governance and my access request. And we'll see that inbox. So that request came through from Randall Boggs. Alternatively, as an administrator, I have been set as the approver for this, as I am part of the IT team. So I could approve or deny that directly from here on that Okta app. So I'll go ahead and do it from this side. I will show that you can take a look at the questions as well. Well, we'll give that a second. Oops. Okay, so that's not coming up. The demo gods aren't on my favorite right now. Anyway, you can hit questions and it shows the responses from the end user, like where are they traveling, the return date, business justification, start date, etc. We'll go ahead and we'll just go ahead and approve this from Slack. So I'll click approve. And we'll see that's kind of kicking off in the background. I just had a one layered approval layer there. So this is going to go through once that IT administrator approves it. Now, really what's going on from an access request side, and we'll take a look inside this access request, is these are the questions that I'm going to ask that end user. And down here, I'm just doing an IT approval, and then I'm going to go ahead and call a workflow. So this is where we're going to call a delegated flow directly from access requests. And this logic tab is going to specify that we're only going to kick off this workflow if IT's approved it. So once that that condition's been met, we'll go ahead, call the workflow. So in the background now, and I have the workflows console open here, but to show you how to get to it, we can come down here to workflows console. I can go to my flows. In this case, it's going to be my OIG out of country request. And this is going to be that delegated flow that starts this whole process off. Right. So what it's doing is it's receiving those inputs from the user in this delegated flow. And in here, I'm going to create a text compose card to basically say, so-and-so needs access to this country. And I'm going to format the date, that start date and the end date, just to make it a little more readable for the end user as we log these tickets and compose all this information. So I've created a message here as well. So it says, so-and-so is going to access or request access to this country. Here's the reason, the start date, and the end date, which is all formatted from these cards previously. I'm going to go ahead and create a Jira ticket as well. So that's where I'm dragging that other text input card, the email this person needs out of country, and a description. And we're going to go ahead and log a row in the table with that information. And really, we're going to be looking at these start dates and these end dates for this information. So I'll go back out here, and under tables, I can go ahead and click this, and we'll see that information was logged to the table. So Randall Boggs needs access to Canada. He's going to visit family. There's the ticket ID. So if we actually come out to Jira now, and we'll see that Randall Boggs needs access to Canada. And there's the information from the ticket that we threw in there from that text compose card. Oops. And now really, we're just going to have some scheduled flows that take care of the rest. So that information's in the table. I'm actually going to leave that table open. So we see that information here. And on this start date is when we're going to want to put them in that group so they're exempt from that security policy. I also have a flag here that I've set, says is out of country. This just gives me a good check as I'm filtering these down if we have a lot of out of country requests, that we only look for the ones that aren't already out of country. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add the user to that out of country group. So this is running on a schedule, and we can designate that to be whatever we want, really. So 8 a.m. Every day, we can do this, or we can do it down to the hour or minute. So we can get pretty specific there. And the reason I'm adding 1 day to now is just because of UTC timestamps on the server. Sometimes it logs it as midnight. So really today might be midnight today. So just to catch that kind of edge case, I'm dropping that in here. And I'm going to search that table that we have before for anyone whose start date is before or equal to today or this 1 day ahead of time. And the out of country is equal to false. So they're not already out of country. We can go ahead and put them in that group. And then we're going to go ahead and send these individuals, all these rows, to our helper flow. And this helper flow is going to take care of the rest, right? So this is going to grab that information. That's that remote employee. And I'm using this get multiple object card to pull out the different properties on that object. And in this case, it's our employee, or one row in the table. So you got email, country, the ticket ID, the same information we saw before. We can list users with this search. So we can grab that user's email that logged this, and we can essentially grab that user and we can add them to our out of country group. And this group ID I've hard coded into here. It's actually not that complex. If we go to our groups and we go to this out of country group, up here in the URL is where that group ID really is. So there's probably other means to retrieve it if you're trying to do something dynamic, searching for groups by a particular field. There's a lot of Okta cards that can help us with this, but in this case, this is easiest just to grab that group ID and then come back here. And then we're going to take that user's ID that we searched from and drop it into there. Perfect. I'm now just doing some difference in the time here just to make things a little bit easier in my text compose card. So it's going to say they're going to be out of country for X number of days. It's just the difference between the end and the start date. Doing some more date formatting here, so that looks nice as it comes through. I believe, let's go into, yes. So then we're going to take that ticket that we've already logged in Jira right here, and we're going to go ahead and promote this to in progress as they've been put into that group. We're going to send an email out to that individual. I've hard coded a subject in here. You can create another text compose card if you want to customize it even more. And I'm going to go ahead and send a Slack to my administrator as well. Then I'm going to update that table row and just say, hey, that user is out of the country now. So relatively straightforward. We'll go ahead and run this flow. Oops. We'll go ahead and run the flow that calls that flow. So let's go ahead and run this. And we'll see that information going through. And it's going to go ahead and grab that, and it's going to loop through that table. So on this side, we should see the execution history as well. And we have a success here, and it's going to show that information passing through. Let me roll back a little bit. So we know Randall Boggs is here. We come to this text compose card, Randall Boggs going to Canada. It's a 0-day difference. And then that formatted date here is our 12/18. So that's today. And then we're going to go ahead and send an email out and send a direct message. I'm not going to show the email today because I got to pull up another screen for that, but it did send through, and the Slack here is saying that Randall Boggs is now in Canada at the start date of this. The user's added to the out of country group, and the user will be removed in 0 days. So that's that difference. So I can come back to my groups here. I'll go ahead and refresh this guy, and now he's added into that group. And so what that's doing, if we remember, is we're going to come back here to our security and our authentication policy, down to our sensitive applications policy. And now every time this user tries to access one of the 4 applications tied to this, you're going to trip this rule even if he's in one of those risky areas. So this allows us to kind of exempt that out. And this workflow is also going to watch for the activity on the other side, right? When we want to take the person out of that group to reduce our threat landscape. So that's going to be the user comes back to the country, and we're going to run a scheduled flow, look for where the end date is less than or equal to now. And if they're already out of the country, we're going to send all those rows through to a second helper. And then in here, we're just doing additional logging. We might take that, we're going to get that same information out. The logic's going to be very similar. We're going to grab that user, remove them from the group, which I've hard coded in there. Some more date formatting, composing a text. So so-and-so returned from the country, and we'll transition the issue, send a Slack, and we'll go ahead and delete that row out because we don't need it anymore. And I didn't show the Jira side of this. So that's going to go ahead and promote that ticket to our in progress here for further tracking. Perfect. So this user's back in the country now because today is, it's going to look for today, and that's when he's supposed to be returning. Perfect. So we see that information flow through. We'll come to this side and we'll look at the execution history. And here we're going to see that information pass through. We transitioned that ticket and we went ahead and deleted the table row. So back in here, go ahead and refresh that. It's no longer there. And we go back to jumping around a lot on you guys. Give me a second. Our out of country group, we have 0 people in there. So he's been successfully removed. So that's the gist of the flow, kind of helping automate that whole process. And hope you guys enjoyed it. There's a lot of complicated and cool flows that I hope I can build out and showcase to you guys to help you guys improve your threat and your security landscape. Thanks. Take care.